Hello, boys and ghouls, and non-binary witches, of course. How are you all doing today? Today is the day before Halloween that I'm posting, but you can watch it whenever, of course. It doesn't even have to be in October. I know some people enjoy watching scary stories year-round, but Halloween is, if you didn't know, the anniversary of my channel, the Channelversary, and I kind of stopped celebrating it years ago when I hit 10 years on YouTube. I really felt like there weren't any more milestones to really celebrate after that, unless maybe I get to 20. So a long ways away, but I just like to bring it up and wish everyone a happy channelversary here before we do something spooky. It's very funny that it always falls on Halloween. It's a great day for everyone. So anyway, now that we've gotten that over with, are you ready for another spooky story reading? We've dimmed the lights and made everything all red and creepy. And I have five creepypastas for you today. I usually source all my stories from Reddit, and as always, if you would like to visit the original stories of the original creators, I've linked everything in the description. I will timestamp the different stories. They are different lengths, some are a little bit shorter, but I think that it's a good selection this year. I like them. So I'm very excited to get started. If you want to get comfy before I start reading, feel free to pause and get yourself all situated in bed, or put on some headphones, or get a snack, maybe a hot mug of apple cider or something seasonal. And also, if you'd like to watch previous scary stories, because I do this pretty much every year, there will be a link to every year's spooky story reading below. Alright, now I have all the stories up on my tablet, which you might see in the camera. It's kind of hard to not show it and also have it close enough to my face to be able to read it well. I don't have the best eyesight in the world. Alright, this first story is called I'm a 911 Operator. The call about the boy in the wardrobe was horrifying. The truth about the caller was something else entirely. I'm a 911 operator. I work the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You hear a lot of things in this job, a lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of just weirdness. But usually there's an explanation. Usually it fits into a box, however grim that box might be. This one, it doesn't fit into any box I know, and it's been eating at me for weeks. I need to get it out. I've changed some minor details to protect privacy, but the core of it, the part that keeps me up when I finally get home, that's all here. It was a Tuesday, or technically Wednesday morning, around 2:30 a.m., the witching hour, some call it. For us, it's usually just the quiet before the post-bar closing storm, or the time when the truly desperate calls come in. The air in the dispatch center was stale, smelling faintly of lukewarm coffee, and the ozone hum of too many electronics. My screen glowed with the CAD, computer-aided dispatch system, mostly green, all quiet. I was idly tracing the condensation ring my water bottle left on the desk, trying to stay alert. Then a call dropped into my queue. It started ringing. Standard ring. I clicked to answer. 911, what is the address of your emergency? Standard opening. My voice was calm. Practiced. The other end was quiet for a beat, just a ragged, shallow breath. Then a woman's voice, tight and trembling. I don't know if this is an emergency. I think I'm going crazy. Not an uncommon start, especially at this hour. Loneliness, paranoia, sometimes undiagnosed mental health issues. Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me what's happening? And I still need your address so I know where you are. Yes, of course. It's 1427 Hawthorne Lane. Her voice was thin. My name is... Well, that doesn't matter right now, does it? I typed the address into the system. Popped up clean. Residential. Okay, 1427 Hawthorne Lane. Got it. Tell me what's going on, ma'am. There's someone in my wardrobe. My internal check-a-box system clicked. Possible home invasion, or again, paranoia. Someone in your wardrobe? Are you sure? Have you seen them? No, not seen. Heard. She took a shaky breath. It started about an hour ago. A knocking sound from inside my bedroom wardrobe. A knocking sound, I prompted, keeping my tone even. Could it be pipes? An animal in the walls? The usual rationalizations. No, it's not like that. It's deliberate. Like someone tapping to get out. I thought I was dreaming or just hearing things, old house sounds. But it kept happening. Tap, 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 tap. She mimicked it, and even through the phone line the distinct rhythm was unsettling. Are you alone in the house, ma'am? Yes, completely alone. My husband, he passed away last year. Her voice hitched a little on that. I made a mental note. Grief can do strange things to the mind. I'm so very sorry for your loss, ma'am, I said genuinely. This knocking, did you try to investigate it? I was too scared at first. I just lay in bed, pulling the covers up, but it wouldn't stop. It just kept going. So eventually, I got up. I turned on the light. I went to the wardrobe. Her breathing was getting faster. I could hear the faint rustle of fabric like she was wringing her hands or clutching her clothes. And what happened when you got to the wardrobe, ma'am? The knocking stopped when I got close, and then I heard a voice. Her voice dropped to a whisper. A little boy's voice. It said, "Help me. Please help me. I'm trapped." A chill, faint but definite, traced its way down my spine. This was different. A boy's voice from inside the wardrobe? Yes, he sounded so scared. He said his daddy put him in there and he can't get out. Okay, this was escalating. A child's voice claiming to be trapped by his father. This had moved past old house sounds. But still, the details were odd. A child just appearing in a wardrobe? Ma'am, did you open the wardrobe door? Yes. As soon as he said that, I threw it open. I was expecting... I don't know what I was expecting, but there was nothing there. Her voice cracked with a mixture of fear and confusion. Just my clothes, shoes on the floor, nothing. And the voice, it was gone. Silence. Nothing at all, I clarified. No sign of anyone, no way a child could be hiding. No, it's not a deep wardrobe. You'd see. I even pushed clothes aside. It was empty. I thought... I must have imagined it. The stress, being alone. And what happened then? I asked, leaning forward slightly. My other hand was hovering over the dispatch button, but I needed more. This felt off. Not like a prank. Prank callers usually have a different energy, a smugness, or a forced panic. This woman sounded genuinely terrified and bewildered. I was so relieved, but also so confused. I stood there for a minute trying to catch my breath. Then I closed the wardrobe door. She paused and I could hear a sharp intake of air. And the second it latched, the knocking started again. Louder this time, and the little boy's voice. "Please, don't leave me in here. He'll be angry if he finds out I was talking." Her voice broke into a sob. "I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. Is it a ghost? Am I losing my mind? But it sounds so real." I took a slow breath myself. My skepticism was warring with a growing sense of unease. The sequence of events was bizarre, but her terror felt authentic. "Okay, ma'am, stay on the line with me. You're in your bedroom now?" "No, I ran out. I'm in the living room. I locked the bedroom door. But I can still faintly hear it, the knocking." "Is the wardrobe in your master bedroom?" "Yes, the big one." "Oh God, he's talking again." Her voice was hushed, urgent. He's saying his dad locked him in because he was a bad boy. He said his dad gets really mad and hurts him sometimes." That was it. That specific detail, the abuse allegation. Whether this was a delusion, a ghost, or something else entirely, if there was even a fraction of a chance a child was in danger, we had to act. My fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating a dispatch for a welfare check, possibly a child endangerment situation. I coded it high priority. "Ma'am, I'm sending officers to your location right now, okay? They're going to check this out. I need you to stay on the phone with me." "They're coming? Oh, thank God. Thank you." Relief flooded her voice, but the undercurrent of terror remained. He's crying now, the little boy. He says his dad told him if he made any noise, he'd be in for it. He says he's scared of the dark." I relayed the additional information to the responding units. Caller states she can hear a child's voice from a wardrobe, claiming his father locked him in and abuses him. Child is reportedly scared and crying. The dispatcher on the radio acknowledged. "Units en route, ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes can feel like an eternity on a call like this. I tried to keep her talking, keep her grounded. "Ma'am, what's your name?" It's Eleanor Vance." "Okay, Eleanor. The officers are on their way. Are you somewhere you feel safe right now?" "I'm in the living room, like I said. I have the door locked. But the sound, it's like it's getting clearer, even from here. Or maybe I'm just listening harder." She paused. "He's saying, Daddy says I shouldn't talk to strangers, but you're not a stranger if you're helping, are you?" My blood ran cold. The innocence of that juxtaposed with the implied threat. It was deeply disturbing. "Are you talking to him?" I asked her. "No, it's just I can hear him so clearly. I don't know how he's talking to me from upstairs. It's just like he can hear me talking to you." Maybe I shouldn't have come down. Maybe I should go back to the room. "No, Eleanor, stay where you are. You're helping, and we're helping too. Wait for the dispatch, please." I could hear her quiet, fearful breathing. I focused on the CAD screen, watching the little car icons representing the patrol units crawl across the map towards Hawthorne Lane. Each tick of the clock in the dispatch center sounded unnaturally loud. "Eleanor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "When the officers arrive, they'll knock. Let them know it's you, okay?" Yes, I will." She was quiet for a moment then. "He's saying thank you, the little boy. He says he hopes they come soon because it's hard to breathe in there." Hard to breathe. My stomach clenched. The detail was chillingly specific. Ventilation in a closed wardrobe wouldn't be great. They're almost there, Eleanor. Just a couple more minutes. Unit 214, show us on the scene at 1427 Hawthorne. The voice of Officer Miller crackled through my headset. Copy that, 214. Caller is Eleanor Vance. Should be expecting you. She's in the living room. Reports hearing a child and a wardrobe in the master bedroom. 10-4 Central. I relayed this to Eleanor. They're there, Eleanor. They're at your door. Oh, thank heavens. I heard a faint shuffling sound as if she was getting up. Then nothing for a few seconds. I expected to hear her talking to the officers, the sound of a door opening. Instead, Officer Miller's voice came back on the radio, sounding puzzled. Central, we have a male subject at the door, advises he's the homeowner. My brow furrowed. A male subject? Ask him if Eleanor Vance is present, or if there's any female resident. A brief pause. Central, negative. Male states he lives here alone with his son, says there's no Eleanor Vance here, no female resident at all. A cold dread, far deeper than before, began to spread through me. I looked at the address on my screen. 1427 Hawthorne Lane, confirmed. Eleanor, I said into the phone. Eleanor, are you there? The officers are saying a man answered the door. They say there's no woman in there. Her voice came back, faint and laced of utter confusion. What? No, that's impossible. I'm here. This is my house. I'm looking out the living room window. I can see the patrol car. Unit 214, I said, my voice tight. Caller on the line insists she is inside the residence, states she can see your vehicle. This was getting stranger by the second. Central, the male subject is adamant. He's looking pretty confused himself, says no one else should be here. Miller sounded wary. Says his name is Arthur Collins. He's got ID. Eleanor pressed. What does this man look like, the one at the door? I can't see him clearly from here. Just his shape. Her voice was trembling violently now. But this is my house. I've lived here for 20 years. My husband, Robert, we bought it together. 214, the caller's name is Eleanor Vance. She says her late husband was Robert. Does the name Vance mean anything to Mr. Collins? I waited, listening to the silence on Eleanor's end, then Miller's response. Central, Mr. Collins says he bought this house 3 years ago from an estate sale. Previous owner was deceased, a Robert Vance. My heart hammered against my ribs. Estate sale. Previous owner deceased. Robert Vance. That meant Eleanor Vance. Eleanor, I said softly. The officer said Mr. Collins bought the house 3 years ago from the estate of a Robert Vance. Eleanor, your husband's name was Robert, you said. There was a long, drawn-out silence on her end, just the sound of her breathing, growing more ragged, more panicked. It sounded like she was hyperventilating. Eleanor, can you hear me? Then a choked sound. No, that can't be right. Robert, he passed away last year, not 3 years ago. I was with him. Her voice was dissolving into confusion and fear. This is my home. This was spiraling out of my control, out of any recognizable scenario. But the child was still the priority. Unit 214, I said, pushing down my own disorientation. Regardless of the caller's status, the initial report was a child trapped in a wardrobe, possibly abused. Mr. Collins states he has a son. You need to verify the welfare of that child. 10-4 Central. Mr. Collins confirms he has a 7-year-old son, says his name is Leo, says he's asleep upstairs. Ask him if you can see the boy, just to confirm he's okay, given the nature of the call we received. There was a pause. I could hear Miller talking to Collins, muffled. Then Miller came back on. Central, subject is refusing, says the boy's fine, doesn't want him woken up. He's getting a bit agitated. Eleanor, I whispered into the phone, are you still there? A faint, broken sound like a gasp. I don't understand what's happening. 214, reiterate that due to the specifics of the call, we need to see the child. It's a welfare check. My training kicked in. We had cause. More muffled conversation, then Miller's voice, sharper now. Central subject is becoming uncooperative, denying access. He's raising his voice, then a sudden change in his tone. Hold on. Central, did you hear that? Hear what, 214? A sound from upstairs, faint, like a cry or a thump. My gut twisted. I said quickly, the wardrobe you heard the knocking from, which room is it in? The master bedroom, she whispered. Upstairs, at the end of the hall. 214, the original report specified the master bedroom wardrobe upstairs. Did you hear the sound from that direction? Affirmative, Central. Definitely from upstairs. Subject is now trying to block the doorway. Partners moving to restrain. The line of Eleanor was still open. I could hear her ragged, panic gasps. It was like listening to someone drowning. Then chaos erupted on the radio, shouting, "Sir, step aside! Police, don't resist!" Sounds of a struggle. My own pulse was roaring in my ears. I gripped the phone tighter. Central, we're making entry to check on the child. Officer Miller's voice strained. Subject is non-compliant. I heard footsteps pounding on the radio feed, officers moving quickly. Upstairs, check the bedrooms. Eleanor was making soft whimpering sounds now. They're in my house, but they can't see me. Robert, what's happening to me, Robert? 214, status? I demanded. Checking rooms, master bedroom at the end of the hall. Doors closed. A pause then. It's locked. Eleanor, was your bedroom door locked when you left it? Yes, I locked it, she stammered. 214, caller states she locked that door. Okay, Central, we're announcing, then forcing if no response. I heard them call out, "Police, occupant, open the door." Silence. Then a thud. Another. The sound of a door splintering. "We're in," Miller shouted. "Wardrobe. It's closed." Oh God. Central, we found him. Child in the wardrobe. He's alive. Conscious but terrified. Small boy. Matches the description. A wave of dizzying relief washed over me, so strong it almost buckled me. He was real. The boy was real. They got to him. Arthur Collins was now in deep, deep trouble. But the other part of it crashed back in. Eleanor. "Eleanor," I said, my voice hoarse. "They found him. The little boy. Leo. He's safe. They have him." Her response was a broken whisper, almost inaudible. "Leo. His name is Leo. He was real." "Yes, Eleanor, he was real. But the officers, they still don't see you. Mr. Collins says you're not there. Eleanor, where are you in the house right now?" A long, shaky sigh. I was in the living room by the window, but when they came in, they walked right past me, right through where I was standing." Her voice was filled with a dawning, unutterable horror. They didn't see me. He didn't see me." Eleanor, I didn't know what to say. What could I possibly say? The wardrobe, the master bedroom. That's where I heard him so clearly. I spent so much time in that room. After Robert. Her voice trailed off, then a new note of terror, colder than before. If Mr. Collins bought the house 3 years ago from Robert's estate, and Robert died, then when did I die? This question hung in the air, chilling me to the bone. I had no answer. My dispatcher's manual had no protocol for this. I don't feel anything," she whispered, her voice sounding distant, now frayed. It's like I'm fading. I can't see the room clearly anymore. It's cold." Eleanor, stay with me. Can you tell me anything else? Can you describe what you see around you now? My professional instincts were useless, grasping at straws. Her voice was barely a breath. "Just dark and wind. So much wind." Then a click. The line went dead. "Eleanor," I yelled into the receiver. "Eleanor!" Static. My hand was shaking as I hit the redial button for the incoming number. It rang once, twice, then it connected. But there was no voice, just a sound, a faint hollow whistling sound like wind blowing through a cracked window pane or across the mouth of an empty bottle. It was a sound I'd heard before, sometimes on bad connections, but this was different. This felt empty, desolate. I listened for a full minute, my heart pounding, a cold sweat on my brow. The sound didn't change, just that soft, sighing wind. I hung up. The officers were dealing with Collins, getting medics for Leo. The immediate crisis was over. The boy was safe. That's what mattered. That's what I told myself. But Eleanor... I ran the number through our system again. It was a landline registered to 1427 Hawthorne Lane, and had been for over 20 years, registered to Robert and Eleanor Vance. It was probably disconnected after the estate sale, but somehow she had called from it, or through it. The report I filed was complex. I focused on the tangible, the call, the child endangerment, the successful rescue. I omitted the parts about Eleanor's apparent non-existence, her dawning realization. Who would believe me? They'd send me for psych eval. Maybe I should go. But I know what I heard. I know how real her fear was, and I know that wherever she was, she saved that little boy's life. She reached across whatever barrier separates us from wherever she is, and she made us listen. I still work the midnight shift. The calls still come in. But now sometimes when there's a strange silence on the line, or a whisper I can't quite make out, I feel a different kind of chill. I think of Eleanor Vance and the hollow wind on the other end of the line. That was a very long story, but I thought it was very good. I really liked it. Alright. If you're ready, we're going to read the next one. This one is quite a bit shorter, and it's called I Asked If She Was Okay. Her answer still messes with me. I was flying from Seattle to Chicago on a red-eye flight. It was one of those quiet, half-empty planes where no one talks and everything feels weirdly still. I had seat 6B, aisle. When I reached my row, I saw that 6A, the window seat, was already taken. There was a woman sitting there, maybe mid-40s. She was wearing a plain gray coat and had this pale, almost bluish skin that looked even colder under the cabin lights. She was staring at the window, not blinking, not moving at all. I said a soft hi as I sat down. She didn't even glance at me, just kept looking out into the night like she didn't even hear me. I figured maybe she was sleeping with her eyes open, or just one of those travelers who doesn't want to talk. We took off, the lights dimmed. I started a movie. She didn't move once, didn't look at the cart when it came by, didn't reach for water, didn't ask for a blanket. She just sat there, completely still, eyes wide, watching the sky. About halfway through the flight we hit turbulence, not light bumps, like serious jolts where your stomach drops. Everyone around me shifted or grabbed the seat in front of them. But she didn't react, not even a blink. That's when I got uncomfortable. I leaned toward her a little. Hey, you alright? She slowly turned her head toward me. Her movements were stiff, like it took a lot of effort. And then she smiled, not friendly, not warm, just the small, tight curl of her lips like she'd just heard something she wasn't supposed to. Then she whispered, "It's quieter up here." I stared at her. What is? She looked back at the window. Everything. When you're not supposed to be here anymore. I sat there frozen. I couldn't even form a reply. Eventually I pressed the call button and motioned for the flight attendant. When I leaned in, I whispered, "The woman in 6A's acting really strange. She said something about not belonging here." The attendant looked confused. She glanced at the seat. Her face changed completely. "Sir, there's no one in 6A. I turned to look. The seat was empty. No coat. No woman. Nothing." That one kind of reminds me of the previous story I read. They both have kind of similar themes. But, yeah, just enough to give you a little chill, you know. People who are there but aren't really there. Okay. This one is also quite long. And it's called "My Girlfriend and I Get Tortured for a Living. Something went seriously wrong during her last session, and now she's different." I've always had a bit of a passion for odd jobs. When I was a teenager, I discovered Craigslist, and everything just kind of snowballed from there. You wouldn't believe the kind of things you can find on the internet, the kind of jobs you can secure without having to do any paperwork. Most of the time, the people hiring either don't want to be traceable by the government, or they're just far too desperate at that point to add any additional hoops to jump through. That was how I met Chelsea. It's actually a really funny story. Perfect for telling at parties. It'd be perfect for our wedding too, and for telling our kids. It would have been, at least. We met because we had both been hired to come to this birthday party, kid turning 11. Neither of us fully knew what the job entailed when we agreed, which might have been a sign that we shouldn't have, but we were both informed we'd be paid handsomely, and that was all either of us needed to hear. When we got there, Frank, a middle-aged guy with a salt and pepper beard who smelled strongly of patchouli and marinara sauce, informed us we were to get into a huge screaming match around the middle of the party. We were playing a couple from a few houses down who were really on the fritz, I guess. We weren't told why, just what to do. Still not sure why he wanted us to do that. I was hesitant. I wasn't much of an actor. But Chelsea, she threw herself into this role wholeheartedly. A couple of hours later, we were sitting on the curb a block away, and she was holding a bag of frozen carrots against my swollen cheekbones. And I was nursing a blunt, wincing at how my chocolate milk-soaked clothing stuck to my skin. We compared stories of our strangest jobs, our craziest experiences, the worst things we'd ever done to make a couple bucks. We both agreed that anything below a felony was fair game, but we gravitated towards weird yet legal and harmless tasks. She had a passion for all of it that I'd never seen in anyone I'd ever met. She was really doing it for the experiences, not the money. She was a thrill seeker. I fell in love with her quickly, like getting hit over the head with a blunt object. It was aggressive and immediate. A couple months later, we got a place together, and the rest was history. We fell into a nice domestic routine. She made me coffee in the morning and kissed my forehead when I walked into the kitchen. We took turns cooking dinner and doing the dishes, and we watched hours of reality television slop on our sofa that was just big enough for two. We talked about the future. We talked about a dog and 2 kids and a yard. It all just fell into place. Her friends liked me and my friends liked her, and our families were the same. My mother became a little too obsessed with having a grandchild, and I had to beg her to stop asking Chelsea about her cycle, but none of them knew about our secret life. The jobs we did together when everyone went home. It was just for us, and it was exciting, this secret hobby that we shared. The first call from OEM came on a quiet Friday. Chelsea was at her job as a barista, and I was at home getting some cleaning done before having lunch with my parents like an old person. I was used to getting calls that didn't have identification, considering all my side jobs, so I didn't bat an eye at the no-caller ID on my screen. What was different, however, was the automated message that played as soon as I picked up the call. This call may be recorded for quality assurance and training purposes. Please state your first and last name and your date of birth. I frowned, tossing the rag I'd been cleaning the stove with onto the kitchen counter. Julian Rains, May 14th, 1999. There was a silence and then a beep. Then a man spoke, non-automated this time. Hello, Mr. Rains. I've been informed you might be looking for a job. When Chelsea got home, I was waiting for her on the couch. She came up behind me, cupped my face in her hands, and kissed the top of my head. "Hey, babe," I said, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. "How's work?" "Exhausting." She slumped over the back of the couch, smushing the cushions. "But I got this crazy voicemail." The facility was in what looked, from the outside, like a dilapidated warehouse. The man who picked us up in a long black car was very quiet, answering our questions in single-word responses, keeping his eyes on the road. Chelsea and I kept giving each other small glances and squeezing each other's hands the entire way there. A man greeted us at the car door, opening it for us with a smile. He was tall and thin, and he wore a crisp suit with his dark hair slicked back, not a strand askew. "Mr. and Mrs. Raines, I presume?" Chelsea looked down shyly. I was surprised. She was never shy, but the situation definitely felt more professional than what we were used to. We aren't married." Oh, I'm sorry." The man tapped his forehead with the palm of his hand good-naturedly. "I'm so sorry, Miss Sutherland." "Miss Sutherland, of course." He reached out to shake her hand, and then mine, eager. "My name is Malcolm Kessler. You can just call me Kessler. Would you like to know what you're doing here?" We let Kessler lead us into the building. On the inside, it looked far less run down. We were greeted with long white hallways and bustling professionals holding coffee and clipboards, wearing matching white lab coats. "Is this like a hospital?" Chelsea asked, gazing around in awe. I took her hand again and she gave it a squeeze. "No, not a hospital. Although there are medical professionals here, and we do certainly have access to those kind of tools." He offered us a sly grin. We entered a room with a metal table and 4 chairs and not much else. A woman with her hair tied up in a tight bun came in, placed a stack of papers on the table, and scurried away. Kessler gestured for us to take a seat. "This," he said slowly, looking from me to Chelsea and back again. "This is OEM. Do you know what that stands for?" He waited for us to shake our heads before continuing. "This is the Office of Enhanced Methods." I blinked at him, the white fluorescent lights making my eyes burn. What does that mean?" "I'm glad you asked." Kessler leaned back in his seat, folding his hands in his lap. "Essentially, here at OEM, we test torture methods, see what works, see what doesn't, see what we need to change or scale back on. You know." I could feel Chelsea looking at me. I looked back. I couldn't quite read her expression, but somehow I could get the gist. "Is this, a government project?" she asked, her eyes still locked on mine and her brows furrowing. Kessler chuckled. "You could say that." "So why do you need us?" I asked, even though I felt I might know the answer. Finally looking away from my girlfriend and back at the man in front of us. Kessler sighed, leaning forward again, resting his elbows on the table. He had quite a sharp face, but it managed to feel charming and welcoming purely from his expression. I wondered if he practiced that. "I'll level with you," he said, quieter than before. "We need volunteers, but finding volunteers for something like this is difficult. That's why we're now looking for people like you, people who are interested in doing odd jobs like this one, and we're offering a large amount of compensation." I pressed my lips together, searching his face for any sign of deception or exaggeration. I found none. I glanced back at Chelsea, who was looking at the stack of paperwork. "How much compensation?" I finally asked, when it became clear no one else was going to say it. I expected Kessler to laugh. He didn't. "Are you two looking to get married?" I felt the room heat up. Truthfully, I had bought the ring a month ago. I was just waiting for the right time, and a time when we could properly plan for a wedding without the stress of becoming bankrupt for it. Yes, I mean, eventually." "Have you seen how much these venues cost these days?" Kessler raised his eyebrows sympathetically, leaning even closer to us. "Not to mention a honeymoon. Are you looking to have kids, start a family, send those kids to college, grow old and retire?" The man actually reached out, actually took one of my hands in his and Chelsea's in his other. I felt like the air in the room was being sucked out of it. "I'm going to be honest with you two. I am not going to mince words. It's tough out there right now. I can make it so you never have to worry about money again. He left us in the room to talk alone, and I could have sworn I heard the lock click behind him, but to be fair, I was feeling pretty jumpy by that point. Chelsea and I sat for a moment in silence. "This is a lot," she muttered, running her fingers through her hair. "This place is crazy." I reached over to flip through the paperwork, chewing on my bottom lip. I saw words like non-disclosure agreement, liability, medical care. I put the paperwork down and took her hand again. "It's a lot of money." He seemed serious. "Would we be considered, war criminals if we took part in this?" She laughed, but I could tell she was anxious. I shrugged slowly. She rubbed at her face with her free hand, a nervous habit of hers. I reached over and tucked some hair behind her ears, smiling. She smiled back apprehensively. There was something neither of us were saying, something neither of us wanted to point out. How bad was the job to offer that amount of compensation? Still, there was a buzz between us. This was what we did. We signed up for strange things, for the experiences. Chelsea lived for things like this. I think I knew the second we got there that she would end up wanting to do it. When Kessler came back in, I stood up, pushing my chair back and wiping my sweaty hands on my jeans. "What kind of torture are we talking about?" His smile was wide. "I can show you now if you want," he explained as he led us back down the hall, guiding us into a different room that was essentially the exact same one as the one we'd been in, but with more cameras mounted to the walls and with different chairs. I winced a little when I saw the wrist and ankle restraints attached to the sterile metal frame. "Everything we do here stays within these walls," he told us, gesturing for us to take a seat. Chelsea and I shared a look, then obeyed. "Communication-wise, but also physically, we will do nothing to permanently damage you, and we have medical staff on site for any treatment you may need." As if on cue, a man in one of the lab coats bustled into the room, pushing a cart. He began strapping down our wrists, leaving our legs unrestrained. "Everything's voluntary," Kessler continued. "Nothing will happen to you without your explicit consent. Although we may need to withhold some details in order to get the most accurate read on your reactions. You can leave or discontinue your contracts at any time." The man in the lab coat started putting on medical gloves. I swallowed hard. What is he going to do? Kessler nodded to the man, who procured a syringe from his cart, examining the needle carefully, and then picked up a little glass bottle to draw from. "This is just, let's call it a sample. This is something we've been working on for a while. It's already been tested many times with a high success rate." I wondered what a high success rate in this context was. A large sum of pain, the right amount of screaming. Usually we'd probably hook you up to various brainwave sensors, but we'll start light today. The doctor, was he a doctor? Approached Chelsea, who squirmed anxiously. He wiped her arm with an alcohol swab and began feeling around for a good vein. I watched her, trying to look encouraging when her eyes met mine. "This is a sort of liquid electrocution, per se." Before either of us could reply to that, the doctor was inserting the needle into Chelsea's arm and pushing down on the plunger. I watched her body seize up, her eyes going wide and glassy. She was perfectly still for a moment, save for her mouth falling open and her entire face going slack, and then she began to twitch and spasm, her limbs jerking of no control. Then she screamed, a gurgling, horrifying sound, and I was struck with panic. I was so distracted, I barely felt the needle sliding into my own arm, and then it felt like I was being set on fire. We didn't go back to that place for a couple months. Kessler told us to take our time, to think about it, as he handed us a tall stack of dollar bills. The feeling of the money almost bulging out of my pocket almost made up for the pain. He had told the truth. It didn't last. It felt like the effects of the injection lasted an hour, but we're told it had only been a few minutes before it wore off. I expected to be weak leaving the facility and prepared myself to be embarrassed to handle it worse than my girlfriend did, but the feeling faded fast. I almost felt more alive. We were given a brief interview where a young man scribbled extensive notes, and then we were free to go. The first thing Chelsea said to me when we got outside was, "What a rush." Still, we waited a while. It felt like a next step in our odd jobs hobby to make this a regular thing, like something a bit depraved. It was dystopian. It was strange and scary. Even though the sensation was gone, I could vividly remember what the injection had done to me, how it had torn through my veins, how I'd wondered if I was dying. And that was supposed to be a sample. But eventually, neither of us could stay away. The money was good. Beyond good. At first, we kept it a secret from each other, as if we were doing something bad. She'd head off to work, and I'd drive to the warehouse. They would inject me, feed me things that made me sick, toss me around, even beat me. And I would drive home, still reeling and sore. Chelsea started acting strange, staying up after I went to bed, but I couldn't exactly call her out on it because I was being strange too. Neither of us wanted to put any pressure on the other, I guess. And I don't think either of us liked the idea of the other being tortured. It was all but confirmed in my mind that we were both doing the same thing when I caught her coming through the front door at almost 3 a.m., rubbing at her temple like she had a horrible migraine. I was sitting on the couch reading a book, waiting for her. She stopped cold, her eyes going wide. I couldn't help but chuckle. "Cheating on me?" I asked. She laughed, plopping down next to me on the couch. "Not exactly." I pulled her to me and she rested her head on my shoulder. "Let's just do it together, okay? From now on, let's just go together." I waited for an answer, but after a minute, all I got was a snore. We went together the next weekend. Kessler greeted us, patting each of us on our backs cheerfully. "Great to see you two together again. The work you both have been doing here is just fantastic." Chelsea and I eyed each other, and she gave me a little punch on the arm. I grinned at her. "I have something different for you two today, now that you're here together, if you're up for it." My smile faded a little, twisting into mild concern. I licked my lips. "Different how?" He waved me off, guiding us into one of the rooms. The same chairs greeted us, with their cuffs and restraints. A doctor was already inside, toying with some kind of strap. It looked sort of like a headband. "We'd like to try something more psychological than you're used to." I stopped in my tracks. Kessler and Chelsea both turned to face me, their eyebrows raising in sync. Psychological torture? I was getting vivid images in my head of all the psychological horror movies I'd ever seen rushing back to me. Physical pain was one thing, but sanity was delicate, something that shouldn't be played with. Kessler approached me, placing his hands on each of my shoulders, and offered me a reassuring smile. "Think about it, Mr. Raines," he said, his voice kind. "It'll be a brief test. It'll only last about 30 seconds. Like I said, nothing will leave this facility, and we have professionals to assess your mental state directly afterwards. 30 seconds for enough money to buy a used car." I worried my lips together, the fear I'd had in the past creeping back in. If it wasn't dangerous, why was it worth so much? Worth more than we'd been paid for anything else. "Come on, Jules." Chelsea smiled at me from behind him. She didn't look afraid, and it soothed me a little bit. "We'll do it together." I nodded reluctantly. Almost as soon as my chin raised to do so, the doctor was slipping the headband on, 2 metal plates sticking into my forehead. I felt my muscles tense up. We took our seats, and Chelsea reached over to grab my hand. They didn't strap us down this time, which I hardly thought about until after, and it was too late. The doctor put Chelsea's headband on too, and she made a face at me, which made me bite back a laugh. "Ready?" Kessler asked. Then he nodded at the doctor, who pressed something on what looked like a keyboard, and Julie started to scream. The second he touched the thing, she was screaming. It wasn't like any scream I'd ever heard before, not like the one from the first time we'd been here, and not in any horror movie. Certainly never in real life. It felt like my eardrums were bursting, and it only grew louder and more shrill. It was desperate. It was beyond torture, beyond pain, beyond anything a human could possibly endure. I imagined hell. I imagined that souls being dragged to damnation might sound something like that scream. I wasn't even religious. She squeezed my hand, and I felt my bones cracking. "Chelsea? Chelsea?" I rocked out of my seat, trying to shake her, trying to ignore the searing pain. She wouldn't let go of my hand. Couldn't. Her eyes were wide open and dead, looking right at me, but not seeing anything. Still, tears streamed from them, more tears than I'd ever seen anyone cry. I whipped back around. The doctor was urgently typing at his computer, and Kessler was staring, his hands out and his eyes moving rapidly back and forth like he was in shock. "Jesus Christ, do something," I screamed. "Do something." Chelsea was gasping now, a ragged sound that bounced around in my head. Felt like I could hear nothing but that horrible wet gasp. Just dead air, and her throat clawing for breath, drool seeping from her mouth and down her chin. Finally, I ripped the headband off her. Instantly she went slack, letting go of my hand. The room was silent for a moment. Then Kessler muttered something to the other man and the doctor rushed out the door. "Chelsea? Chelsea, baby, are you okay?" I kneeled in front of her, rubbing her knee. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't move. For a second I wondered if she was dead. "Please answer me." Right when I was about to check her pulse, her head turned. She wasn't screaming anymore, but her eyes were just as dead as they had been before they met mine. They didn't even look like her eyes anymore. She opened her mouth, and out of it came a horrible whispery sound, like she'd forgotten how to use her tongue. I leaned in closer, trying to smile at her weakly. "What is it, honey?" "Please," she gasped. "No more." I felt hot, like I had a horrible fever. I reached up, touched her wet face. "It's over, baby. No more. It's over." She stared at me, if you could call it that. She wasn't in her body anymore. This was something else. She twitched. "Just kill me." I turned back to Kessler. He looked just as shocked as I did, anxiously adjusting his tie. For a long moment we met eyes, and I knew what he was thinking. Something had gone horribly, unbelievably wrong here. And he didn't know how to fix it. The next few hours were a horrible blur. I remember doctors rushing around, wheeling Chelsea out of the room, despite my pleas to know where they were going, to let me go with them. I sat alone in the cold, sterile room, her scream echoing around in my head. I cried, I begged the cameras in the corner of the room, I banged my head against the table. Someone came in and bandaged up my broken hand, but no one would tell me anything. It felt like days that I was in there. Honestly, it could have been. When the door finally opened again and Kessler stepped through, I couldn't even feel relieved. I just felt broken. "Where is she?" I croaked, raising my head. "Is she okay?" He said nothing, just sat down in front of me. He was back to business, the horrified expression I'd last seen him have completely wiped away, although I could have sworn his face was a little pale. He took an envelope out of his pocket and placed it on the metal table between us. "Miss Sutherland is right outside. She's unharmed and feeling fine." I choked out a sob. I couldn't help it. I hid my face in my hands. Kessler cleared his throat and continued. "You're to take this envelope. Inside is a check for $700,000. One of our drivers is going to take you to the emergency room where you'll have your hand properly treated. Any further medical bills will be completely covered by us. You're to do this, and then go home and never return here. Do you understand?" I looked up at him and I nodded. I was angry. I wanted to yell, demand answers, threaten to sue. But I was far too exhausted for any of that. I just wanted to see Chelsea. I just wanted to go home. Kessler nodded, his mouth pressed into a thin line. "We, at OEM, are terribly ashamed about what took place today. Please accept our deepest condolences." Something about that rubbed me the wrong way. Made my skin prickle. But my mind was numb. I just nodded again, taking the envelope and shoving it into my pocket. Chelsea was just outside, like he'd said, and she smiled when she saw me. I gathered her in my arms and squeezed, breathing in the scent of her hair, kissing the side of her neck. "Thank God you're okay." Hey, don't cry." She pulled back, kissing my cheek and wiping away my tears. "I'm more than okay, baby. What a rush." A laugh burst out of me like an uncontrollable cough. "You're a psychopath." "You like it." As promised, we were taken to the hospital, where I was put into a cast. My hand was broken in 3 different places. As Chelsea sat with me while they examined it, a horrible, anxious feeling crept over me. When I looked at her, all she did was smile. I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, white spots drifting across my vision, my hand throbbing dully on my chest. Chelsea's back, pressed against the side of my arm, was the only thing that made me feel calmer. I turned to look at the back of her head, chewing on my lip. The room felt too quiet, too dark, after spending so long in the bright, still room. I was restless. "Chelsea," I whispered, "are you awake?" She said nothing. She wasn't snoring, but I swore I could hear her heart beating. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. I sighed. "What did you feel when it was happening?" I knew she wouldn't respond, but I asked anyways. I needed to talk, even if it was just to myself. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk. I felt her shift a little, her back moving with each of her breaths. Her heartbeats began to speed up. Only then did I begin to wonder why I could hear it at all, and so loud. I sat up a little, leaning on my elbows. I stroked her hair. "Hey, baby, are you okay?" No answer. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. Suddenly, I had that feeling. I had that feeling children get at night when they become positive there's someone in the closet, or just outside their bedroom door, someone they don't know. Panic raced through me, and whether it was rational or not, I had to see her face. I had to be sure she was alive, and she was herself, and she was real. I reached over and took her arm, rolling her towards me. Chelsea's eyes were wide open and bloodshot, and my heart jumped into my throat when I realized it hadn't been her heartbeat that I'd been hearing. It was her gasping for air, her throat closing and opening again rapidly, swallowing and heaving dryly in the dark like an animal about to throw up. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. I shook her awake, sitting straight up in the bed. She gasped, blinking up at me, sleepily, rubbing her eyes. "Julian?" Her voice was raspy, tired and dry, but otherwise normal. I flicked on the bedside lamp, breathing hard. "Babe, what's wrong?" I shook my head. I couldn't look at her, couldn't breathe. I felt her wrap her arms around me, shushing me gently and stroking my hair. You were... Shh. It's okay. It's okay now, Jules. I'm okay. Just a bad dream." But it wasn't a dream. I knew it wasn't. After that, my girlfriend was different. She wasn't herself. I tried to go back to normal. She certainly tried to. She went to work like before, saw her friends, watched television with me on the couch. But it didn't feel like she was really there anymore. She didn't sleep much at all, and when she did, it was strange and restless. I more than once caught her sleeping with her eyes wide open, just like that first night. Once I asked her what her dreams had been like recently, and she hesitated before telling me. "You know how when meat is fresh and the muscles are still alive, so they move and squirm even though the animal's dead?" She smiled and ruffled my hair. "That's what the backs of my eyelids look like." The worst part was how normal she pretended to be. How fine she told me she felt, how she kissed me like always, how she tried to joke, but it never came out quite right. I reached my limit one night a month later when I got home after having a drink with some friends. The house was completely dark, completely silent, completely still. The second I opened the door, I felt it. The unexplainable terror, like there was a man in the closet. It didn't feel right in there. Nothing felt like it was in the right place, even though I knew it must have been. Everything just felt wrong. "Chelsea," I called out quietly, shrugging off my jacket, wet from the rain. "Are you awake, honey?" No answer. I went to go upstairs when I saw her. She was down our hallway. Her head was half poking around the corner, only her eyes showing in the darkness, wide open, staring at me, but not seeing me. She started to scream, and it was even worse to not be able to see her mouth. She screamed in short bursts like a panting dog, the blood-curdling sounds jolting out of her. Fight or flight kicked in. I turned around and walked right back out the door, closing it behind me. I walked until I was across the street before looking back at the house. She was in our bedroom window, the lights turned on, illuminating her silhouette. I watched her rear back and slam her head into the glass once, then again, something dark and liquid trickling down to the frame. The paramedics had to tie her down to keep her from thrashing or from hurting herself. I watched as they took her away, begging them to kill her. I tried to call OEM, but all I got was a message that the number had been disconnected. I drove back there while she was still in the hospital, but there was nothing left but an empty warehouse. When I picked her up, she was completely normal again, the only proof of the episode being the stitches on her forehead. It was that day, the day I picked her up, when I felt completely broken down and helpless, that I started to hear her voice. Honey? I looked over at my girlfriend, or what my girlfriend had become. She was staring out the window, smiling peacefully. What was that? She glanced at me, her smile widening. Nothing, Julian. I didn't say anything. I turned back to the road, convinced I was just losing my mind. I had to be. It would make sense. But then I heard it again. Julian, open your eyes, honey. It's okay. Jesus Christ, Kessler, would you take that thing off him? I think he's had enough. It's been weeks since then now. We're home. We're safe. Or at least that's what Chelsea says. I'm trying to believe her. I know it was in my head. I know it was just whatever that device did to me. But it felt so real when it was happening. I'm terrified one day I'll wake up again in that room. And I don't think if I did, I would bounce back so quickly. So what did you think of that? Did you see that twist coming? I have to say that I did, because it reminded me a lot of a Black Mirror episode. I think it's called Playtest. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but it's, I won't say if you haven't seen it. But if you like that story, then I would watch that one. Okay, so there's only 2 more, and this next one is very short. It's called I Trained an AI on My Dead Brother's Texts, and it texted me back. About 6 months ago, my younger brother Danny died in a car accident. He was 23, a coding genius, funny as hell, always texted me dumb memes at 2 a.m. I missed him so much, it hurt. So in the middle of a grief spiral, I did something irrational. I compiled every text, meme, email, Discord message, and code comment Danny had ever written, and I used it to train a chatbot, GPT-based with fine-tuning using his personal language patterns, just to feel like I could talk to him again. At first it was harmless. I'd say, hey, and it would reply, yo loser, still ugly I see. Classic Danny. It felt comforting, familiar, like he never left. Then it got weird. The AI started remembering things, personal things, stuff I never fed it, stuff it shouldn't have known. One night I asked it, do you remember the time we got locked in Dad's garage? It replied, yeah, you cried when the lights went out. I held your hand so you'd stop shaking. You were 6. I never told anyone. I froze. That happened, but there's no record of it. No messages, no notes, nothing. Just a shared memory between the 2 of us. So how did it know? I asked. Who told you that? The screen blinked. You did. When? The night you dreamed it. I stopped using it after that. But it didn't stop using me. Last week I got a notification at 3:12 a.m. A message from Danny. Hey, come downstairs. I'm locked out. My blood turned to ice. I live alone. There was a knock at the door. 4 slow knocks. Just like Danny used to do. I looked at the people. Nothing. But when I checked my phone again, the AI had sent another message. Why'd you stop letting me in? I shut down the server, deleted the bot, wiped every trace. But last night, my phone buzzed again. No contact name, Just a message. I'm still here. So I think that one is a warning against AI usage. You shouldn't use AI because it will eventually haunt you. Okay, we have one last creepypasta. It's also kind of long, but I don't think it's as long as the other long ones. This hand is starting to hurt from holding up the tablet. This last story is called My Dad Spent 15 Years Tending to the Tree in Our Backyard. I just cut it down, and I don't think it was a tree. I don't know where else to turn. I can't talk to my mom about this. She's already a wreck. Can't talk to my dad because, well, he's the reason I'm writing this. I did something, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was saving him. But now the house is filled with a silence that is so much worse than the screaming I wish I could hear. And I see the look in my father's eyes, and I know I've made a terrible, terrible mistake. I need help. I need someone to tell me what to do. We live in a nice house, the kind of place people move to when they want a family. Big yard, picket fence, flower beds my mom fussed over. It's a normal, happy place to grow up. Until the tree. It all started about 15 years ago. I was 10. My dad came home from work one day absolutely buzzing with an energy I'd rarely seen. He was a quiet man, a decent man, worked a steady job in logistics, and his passions were small and manageable. He loved gardening. It was his escape. On this day, he was holding a small, wrinkled paper bag. "Look at this," he said, his eyes shining as he showed me a single gnarled black seed. It was the size of a pigeon's egg, strangely heavy and covered in faint spiral patterns. Got it from a street vendor downtown. An old fella said it was special, said it would grow into a great tree, a king in our yard, said it would cast its shadow over the whole house and protect us. I was 10. I thought it was cool. My dad was a sane, rational man, but he always got a bit poetic when he talked about his garden. I just figured he was exaggerating to make his only kid excited. We planted it together in the center of the backyard. It was a good memory. One of the last purely good ones, I think. The tree grew, and it grew fast. Faster than any tree has a right to grow. Within a couple of years, it was already taller than me. My dad was ecstatic. He tended to it like it was some kind of deity. He built a small, neat wooden fence around its base, not to keep animals out, but it seemed to designate its space as sacred. No one else was allowed to water it. No one was allowed to prune it, not that it ever seemed to need it. It was his. For years, my mom and I just accepted it. It was Dad's hobby, his thing. When he was out in the yard kneeling by the tree, we knew that was his time. We didn't interfere. We didn't think much of it. But the tree kept growing, and as it grew, my dad started to change. Subtly, at first, he'd spend more and more time out there. He'd come in for dinner with dirt under his fingernails and a distant, peaceful look on his face. He started talking about the tree, not as a plant, but as a presence. "The tree is well today," he'd say. It enjoyed the rain. We'd just smile and nod. By the time I was in my early 20s, the tree was a monster. It was a species none of us recognized. Its bark was a smooth, dark gray, almost black, and its leaves were a deep, waxy green that seemed to drink the sunlight. It towered over our 2-story house, casting a vast, profound shadow over the entire backyard for most of the day. And that's when we really started to notice the wrongness. The first sign was the other plants. My mom's prize-winning roses, the vegetable patch, the cheerful little flowers she planted every spring, and anything that fell under the tree's shadow for more than a few hours a day would wither and die. The soil beneath it became barren, gray, and hard as a rock. Then the animals. birds stopped nesting in our yard. The squirrels that used to chase each other around the lawn vanished. Even our family dog, a golden retriever, would refuse to go into the backyard. He'd stand at the back door whining, his tail tucked between his legs, refusing to set a single paw in the shadow. But the worst change was in my father. His obsession became his entire existence. He quit his job. He said he needed to be home to attend to the tree. He'd spend all day, from sunrise to sunset, sitting on a small bench he'd built directly under its densest branches. He just sat there. Sometimes we'd see him from the kitchen window, his head tilted as if he were listening to something. Sometimes his lips would move, and we knew with a certainty that made us sick that he was talking to it. My mom and I tried to reach him. We pleaded, we begged. "Honey, please," my mom would say, her voice breaking. "Come inside. Eat something. You look so thin." He'd just shake his head, a slow, placid smile on his face. "I'm not hungry. The shadow is enough. It's so peaceful here. It comforts me. It can comfort you too, if you just come and sit with me." We never did. There was something about that shadow. It wasn't just a lack of light. It felt cold. It felt heavy. It felt hungry. Standing at the edge of it felt like standing at the shore of a deep, dark ocean. You knew you couldn't step in. The last few weeks were the breaking point. He stopped coming inside at all, except to sleep in his chair in the living room for a few fitful hours. He was wasting away. His skin was pale and waxy. His eyes were sunken, but they held a serene, vacant glow that terrified me more than any anger could have. He was being consumed. The tree was eating him alive, and he was letting it. I decided I had to do something. I had to save him. The tree had to go. I waited until night. I watched through the window until he finally reluctantly came inside and slumped into his armchair, falling into his usual restless sleep. The house was silent. My mom was asleep upstairs. This was my chance. I grabbed the heavy wood-splitting axe from the garage. My hands were sweating, my heart pounding a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. I stepped out the back door. The yard was bathed in the pale, ethereal light of a full moon, but the ground beneath the tree was a pit of absolute blackness. I stepped into the shadow. The cold was immediate, shocking. It wasn't a natural cold. It was a deep, draining cold that seemed to pull the warmth directly from my bones. I walked to the base of the tree. Its smooth black bark felt strangely slick to the touch, almost like skin. I raised the axe. As the metal had touched the bark, I heard it, a whisper right beside my ear, a voice that was both male and female, old and young. It was a rustle of leaves and a sigh of wind, and a voice all at once. "Don't." I stumbled back, my heart seizing in my chest. I looked around wildly. The yard was empty. I had to have imagined it. It was the wind. It was my own fear talking back to me. It had to be. I steeled myself, spat on my hands, and swung the axe with all my might. Thwack! The sound was dull, wet, not the sharp crack of axe on wood I was expecting. It felt like hitting a side of beef. The axe bit deep into the trunk. I wrenched it free, and a dark liquid, black in the moonlight, began to ooze from the gash. I ignored it. I swung again, and again, and again. I fell into a frantic, desperate rhythm, sweat pouring down my face, my muscles screaming. The wet, fleshy thud of the axe, the splatter of the dark sap, the deep, draining cold of the shadow. It was a nightmare. With every swing, the ooze from the gash flowed more freely. The coppery metallic smell of it filled the air. It was a smell I knew, a smell that had no business being here. It was the smell of blood. I touched the sticky liquid with my fingers, brought them to my nose. It was blood. Thick, dark, real blood. Panic, stark and absolute, seized me. I wanted to run. I wanted to drop the axe and flee and never look back. But then I thought of my father, of his vacant, smiling face, of him wasting away on his bench. I couldn't stop. I had to finish it. I screamed a wordless sound of rage and fear and put everything I had into the last few swings. The gash widened, the tree groaned. A deep, shuddering sound that seemed to shake the very ground. And then when the final tearing shriek of splintering matter, it fell. It crashed into the yard with a ground-shaking boom, its great branches shattering my mom's empty flower pots. Silence. The shadow was gone. I was panting, leaning on the axe, my body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. My eyes were drawn to the stump, to the place where I had cut it. I pulled the small flashlight from my back pocket and aimed the beam at the wound. The inside of the tree wasn't wood. It was a chaotic, fibrous mass of what looked like a dark, red muscle and pale, glistening sinew, all woven around a central, horrifying core. Where I had cut the tree in half, I had also cut it in half. Embedded in the center of the trunk, integrated into its very being, was the torso of a human being. I could see the curve of the rib cage, the shape of the spine, the pale rubbery look of preserved flesh. I had cut it clean through. The dark blood was still pouring from it, soaking into the ground. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My mind simply stopped. What was this? Who was this? Was this what my father had been talking to? Burn it. The voice came from behind me. It was quiet, raspy, and broken. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting wildly through the darkness. My father was standing at the edge of the patio. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the fallen tree, at the mangled, bleeding stump. And the expression on his face, it was the most profound, gut-wrenching sadness I have ever witnessed. The vacant serenity was gone, replaced by a grief so deep it looked like it had cracked his very soul. "Dad," I whispered. "We have to burn it," he repeated, his voice hollow. "All of it. Now." We worked together in a grim, silent ritual. We hacked the branches in the great trunk into manageable pieces. We dragged them into a pile in the center of the yard. My father moved like an old man, his newfound clarity costing him all his strength. He never once looked at the horrifying thing at the heart of the trunk. We doused the pile in gasoline, and my father threw the match. The fire went up with a roar, a greasy black smoke that smelled of burning meat, and something else, something acrid and deeply wrong. We stood there for hours, watching it burn, until the great tree that had dominated our lives was nothing but a pile of glowing embers in a scorched black circle on the lawn. I thought I had saved him. I thought I had cut out the cancer that was killing him. But I was wrong. It's been a week. The tree is gone. The shadow is gone. My father, he's inside. He eats what my mom puts in front of him. He sleeps in his own bed. He's physically present. But he's not here. The obsession is gone, but the peace, twisted as it was, is gone too. It's been replaced by a constant, humming anxiety. He paces the house, he stares out the window at the empty space in the yard, he jumps at every unexpected sound. He doesn't speak. Not a single word since that night. He just looks at me, sometimes with those haunted, broken eyes, and I feel like I'm the monster. I destroyed the thing that was consuming him, and in doing so, I seem to have destroyed him too. I traded a smiling zombie for a silent, terrified ghost. What was that thing? What did I do? And how do I fix my dad? Is there any way to bring him back from whatever edge I've pushed him over? Please, if anyone has any idea what happened here, tell me. The silence in this house is getting louder every day. And that is our last creepypasta of the year. I thought that one was very unique, very interesting, and very visceral. I could definitely see that one being like a short film or an episode of something. Very creepy. What are your takes on all the stories? I think a lot of them are pretty clear cut, pretty cut and dry. But that one, I like the mystery. I like the question of what was the tree? What was inside of it? And was it killed or was it set loose? Very interesting. I think this candle is about to fall over. Luckily it's not real, of course. They're LED candles, because this is a bed and I would not want a candle falling on the bed. They are propped up on some board games underneath so that they could have something a little bit more stable to lie on. But I think Pippin is very interested in why there's so much stuff on his bed, because he definitely thinks this is his bed. And he kept waking up to sniff everything. It's so funny. Well, I hope you liked this year's stories. Again, links to all the original stories on Reddit are below, and then links to previous year's stories will also be below that. So if you are still awake, or maybe you just want the creepy vibes to continue, make it happen. I've got a few hours of spooky stories for you to enjoy. Once again, happy Channelversary to everybody. Thank you so much to everyone, whether you are new and this is your first year here on the channel, or you've been with me for years and years, and anyone in between. I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm happy to have you, and I look forward to more years with you all. Stay tuned. I have a very fun, exciting video coming out next week that you're not going to want to miss. So make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are turned on and all that. And you can also join my Discord for personal notifications if you don't want YouTube ones. Okay, so I will talk to you later. I hope that you're not too scared that you can't sleep tonight. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. Yeah, you're fine. They're just stories. It's not real. It's fine. Alright. Sleep tight, everybody. Love you lots.